Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robert Nunn. I'm from Viegli, and welcome to the ISDN migration webinar. Not sure about you guys and ladies, but I find webinars incredibly dull. So what I'm going to do is hopefully speed through some content, give you some useful information, and from there we can go to a question and answer session at the end if you've got any questions. So keeping things brief as you do, there's no transitions in the videos. I don't do death by PowerPoint. Just some basic housekeeping. If it's the first time you've ever joined us on a circuit meeting, you'll notice that you are muted out at the bottom of your screen. If at the end of the meeting you'd like to ask a question, then simply unmute yourself and ask away. The purpose of today's meeting is to dispel some of the mistruths in our industry about the ISDN switch off. And I guess just to put you at ease that there is no immediate risk to your business if you're still using ISDN. So we're going to talk about the timeline. We're going to talk about the information that you will need to collate to make a migration away from ISDN as easy as possible. We'll have a brief look at who your new provider might be or what you should expect. Talk about things about your network and making things easy to migrate to a voice over IP system and what to expect on the day. And as before, at the end of the session, you can ask some questions if need be. Just for housekeeping purposes, the meeting is being recorded and we will share it on public media. So if you do ask a question, it will go out into the ether. So moving on quickly as we do, ISDN key milestones. The ISDN telephone public switched network is being switched off as an aspirational date at the moment by BT Openreach in December 2025, which is then what we know as the WLL portfolio is being withdrawn. There's some key dates in here, not on this slide. So trials on the new SOTAP products begin kind of now, and in the middle of next year the new SOTAP product should become available to us as resellers. Now the key thing here is a single analog line that drives your broadband at the moment will become a new analog line of some kind. The copper isn't going to change, so there is no worry here. The next time you do your broadband refresh or put a new analog line in for an alarm line, it'll be a SOTAP line, but the presentation will be much the same. Key dates that you need to be aware of: September 2023, so that's what, 3.5 years away, is when you'll no longer be able to order new ISDN circuits or make changes to existing circuits. So anybody telling you that you need to do this now is kind of lying. You've got, the best part of 3.5 years to go before anything changes in your ether. The other key date that you won't see any of our competitors telling you is April 2025. So April 2025 is when the orphaned assets phase will begin in the Openreach process. By orphaned assets, if there are any customers left on ISDN come April 2025, then as far as Openreach and the BT group are concerned, you'll become fair game. I would imagine that an army of engineers will be mobilized to visit people that have still got ISDN to convince them to move, and that will be BT retail driving that process. So the key thing that you need to know here, guys, is there is no rush. There are obviously commercial reasons to move and operational reasons to move. If you're being told that you need to move now because ISDN is being turned off shortly, you're being told mistruths. Moving swiftly on. Okay, so if you are going to migrate to a voice over IP, what do we need? Well, in simplistic terms, we need your numbers, and we need to know where your numbers are and what they've got on them. So if you've got ISDN at the moment, you have something called a main bearer number, often referred to as your main billing number. We as resellers, if we have your main billing number and your postcode, we can see what is on your ISDN circuit. Okay, within there, you'll have things called SNDDIs, single number DDIs. So these are single numbers that might have been ported into your ISDN as legacy numbers or analog numbers that your business had years and years ago. You'll also have direct dial ranges, most likely. So direct dial range is a block of numbers, typically done in tens. So you might have 10, 20, 30, 100, 200 on your ISDN circuit. So you need to know what direct dial ranges you've got. And for very old legacy systems, you might be using MSN numbers, which is very old ISDN2, but if you have MSN numbers, then we need to know what they are. And again, just to reinforce this point here, guys, this isn't rocket science. If we know your main bearer number, and if we know the postcode at which that bearer number is installed, then we can find your single numbers, your DDIs, and your MSN numbers. Okay, so is all VoIP the same? Well, the honest answer is no, but then nothing in life is. Great thing about VoIP is that you get additional line-side features, so things that you can't do on your ISDN that you can do in voice over IP term. Typically, there's savings involved, so a voice over IP line is less than an ISDN channel. Okay, but the key thing if you're considering VoIP is to think about the things that you do now as a business, and am I going to lose them? Too often we find businesses that have migrated to voice over IP, they've been sold a load of technology that they won't use, and they've lost things that they used to have, like call parking, the ability to park and page, things that a lot of business still use as you know, things that happen all the time. So if you are considering a move to voice over IP, don't just look at what it can do, look at what it can't do as well, because too many people take it for granted that their new telephone system is going to do everything that it used to do, and more often than not, especially with the ground up only for voice over IP business telephone systems, these have been developed with loads of new technology and things like unified communication, but they more often than not, they don't do the legacy things that you're used to well. So just simple things, like parking a call or transferring a call to a colleague or seeing if a colleague's on the phone. These aren't necessarily easy in the voice over IP world. So you just need to make sure that you pick the right product. Okay. So rattling through as I do, because I don't believe in death by PowerPoint. So you've decided to move to voice over IP, and you're preparing for the day. So on the day of porting, what actually happens? So this isn't a sales pitch, but when we deliver a voice over IP system that has been or is replacing an ISDN system, we aim to do something called dual deploy. So the aim would always be to have the new phone or the new soft client in place for the day of port together with the device that you're already using. Okay, so this means that the user has two devices on the desk. Why do we do that? We would do that because if you deploy the system a week or 10 days before the port's going to be in place, then you can do all of your end user training, you can make sure that customer onboarding is done, that any bugs in the system or programmatical errors are dealt with. So on the day, if you're going to go to voice over IP, our advice would be that you should dual deploy, and you should have the new equipment in situ before the port goes live. The other thing that we'd recommend that you do, and very, very few people do, is actually ask for something called a timed port. So I don't know if you guys have ever moved mobile networks, but the porting process to voice over IP from ISDN is much the same as a mobile porting process. So at some stage between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. on the day of port, your number will leave your incumbent provider and go to your new provider. Now, one of the ways you can limit downtime is to ask for a timed port. It is a chargeable exercise, but it's not a huge amount of money. But for instance, you could say, right, I want this port to happen at 1 p.m. on Thursday, the 5th of March, and know that at 1 p.m. that's when your numbers are porting. You can communicate to your clients accordingly, you can communicate to your staff accordingly, and limit any implications there are for downtime. And the last thing on the day is what if. Now, if anybody tells you that things never go wrong in telecoms, they're kind of lying, because things do go wrong. And the thing that might surprise you about the porting process from ISDN to voice over IP is it's not an automatic process. There is unfortunately humans involved. So a human from the incumbent provider will talk to a human at the new provider, and between them they would agree that now is the time to press the button. and anything that involves humans involves the problems for, or the possibility for these things to go wrong. So what do you do? What if? You need to prepare for 20 minutes of downtime. The longest we've ever had is 2 hours, and typically they're no more than a couple of minutes. But communicate out to your client base and to your staff that you're going to be offline for upwards of 20 minutes. The other beauty would be is why don't you time your port and pay for the port to happen out of hours? So the impact to your clients and your staff would be as minimal as possible. So we would always support you, and I know others in our industry would as well, so it's not just all about VoIP, but the right way to do this is to do it properly, and the way to do it properly is to do it out of hours. But always, always, always think about what if? What if something goes wrong? Have I communicated out to my client base? Have I communicated out to my staff that there's going to be downtime? And what do we do if that happens? Okay, so that's kind of it. So in terms of summary, there is absolutely no need to panic. Nothing's going to happen immediately. Your ISDN business is in no risk whatsoever from the ISDN network being turned off. So the arguments that we should be having with you as a industry are talking about the benefits of moving to voice over IP, and not the fact that you need to turn your ISDN off because you're at risk. The other absolute reality is that SOTAP, which is the new product, so rather than being wholesale line rental and analog lines and ISDN, the new name for the new products is SOTAP, are still being delivered on copper. So your broadband lines, your fiber to the cabinet line, your analog line for your alarm, your analog line for your NAN at home, they will change, but they won't get turned off. So the reality is that the 40 odd million analog lines there are in residential homes and everything else in the UK, they're not going to be turned off. They will change. So in summary, there is absolutely no rush. And there is absolutely no panic. And anybody that tells you that there is a rush and there is panic is telling you porcupines. Okay, so that's me. I'm done. I wanted to keep this short and brief. Ideally, get it done in 15 minutes, which I've achieved. So if you do want to ask a question, if you unmute yourself at the bottom now and ask away, and I'll do my best to answer.
Hi Rob, thanks for putting the video on. One of the reasons we haven't moved yet is that we're worried that VoIP isn't as robust as our ISDNs. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, cool. Okay, Geraldine, good question. Now the reality of this is that you are right and you're wrong. And I'll tell you why you're right. Too many people in the industry are delivering voice over IP on broadband technology. And broadband technology isn't as robust as ISDN. But the more important thing there is that the service level agreement you'll get from your provider is different. So for instance, if you have your ISDN 2s now and you're paying for, say, level 2 care, you've got an 8-hour SLA on your lines. So God forbid if somebody comes along and digs them up, then BT Openreach are absolutely enforced to get that fixed within 8 hours within service level agreement. Your typical provider in terms of providing, say, 8 lines on a broadband circuit will put that on an analog line, and the broadband itself will only have a 24-hour SLA. So if done on a cost basis, i.e. I'm going to deliver this as cheaply as I possibly can, then you're right. Voice over IP isn't as robust as ISDN. Now, my counter argument to that would be if you build it properly. So let's say, for instance, you are an ISDN 30 client at the moment, you've got 30 channels of ISDN, you've got 200 odd extensions, then the way that you would deliver that for your business is actually to do that with Ethernet-based circuits. So it would be a fiber Ethernet circuit with a 6-hour guarantee to fix. At which point voice over IP becomes more robust than ISDN, because at exchange level there's really no difference. Now the the point there, I guess, is it's how it's built and who's built it is the key thing there to answer your question. So if it's built properly, you've got way more resilience than you have on your ISDN. So for instance, things like emergency number porting, emergency number diverts are way easier in a voice over IP environment than they are in an ISDN environment. But to answer your question succinctly, I guess, and as easy as I can, you're right and you're wrong. It's about how it's built, and that's about it. Okay, are there any more questions? Because if they're not, I will say thank you to you all, and have a wonderful afternoon. And you know, for those of you who are listening to the video because you missed the webinar, don't worry, there'll be another one in a couple of weeks on something just as topical. Thank you very much.